Welcome to another episode of Flip the Scrip. I'm Kelly Perkins, and today we have a special guest. We have an additional David M. joining us.
I'm actually the regular Dave M.
We have the original joining us today.
The OG. Okay, so we have the original David M. joining us today, who's also an analyst in the UCC industry. However, I'm going to let him introduce himself. So let's go down and see the rest of the team.
Let's get Kelly down here. And should we just Dave's a friend. Let's just add him here. Usually it's just us here. We add the guest laters, but I think.
Wow, look at that. My mother always said that she knew that I would make it to the farm someday.
You've made. Oh, I need our sound effects. Yay!
Well, welcome, David and David. Thank you for joining us.
It's great to have you here, Dave. Dave is a fellow analyst. We sometimes try to figure out what I do on this show. We're never quite sure. And Dave's been doing it a little bit longer than me, and he might be a little bit better at it than me. So maybe he could help us figure out what exactly do Daves in this industry do.
What do Dave M's do?
What did Dave M do?
Yeah, there was a third Dave M at the last event we were at, and I thought we should start a Dave M podcast.
I'm ready.
Yeah. Well, I don't usually. I try to avoid analysts. I say I'm a protagonist because I'm a storyteller and I'm the hero of the story of the UC industry because I tell the truth that needs to be told. And I love the industry. I've been in this industry my entire career, although I became an analyst around 2010 or so. And I just love communications. I love what's going on in it. Kind of like the other Dave M, the way he feels about video, I just feel about general enterprise communications. So we and Dave and I, we go to a lot of industry events. We meet with a lot of vendors. We try to understand what they're saying. We give them some feedback. The typical menu of an analyst is things like white papers, webinars, and stuff like that. That's how we make money. And we're just really passionate. A lot of people just do this because it's a job, but we actually, Dave and I think have this in common that we chose to do it. And probably because nobody else would employ us, but we chose to do this, and we just love it. And so the thing about UC, or excuse me, I try to avoid UC. I try to use the term enterprise communications. Is it's kind of a nebulous thing, and it touches other stuff. And so it touches. At one point, UC and meetings were completely separate. Then they kind of touched enough that it became combined. But the AV world I've been interacting with for years and years. We interact with the mobile world because that's becoming more interlapping. Contact center world is becoming a big deal. So it's just, enterprise comms is a very fluid thing because we keep changing. We keep getting new apps. We keep changing how we communicate, our preferred tools. And it's kind of funny. I was reaching out to a comms professional. I kid you not. And I didn't have their email, and I asked them for an email, and it was an AOL.com email. And you just kind of you're a comms professional, but then why change it, right? If it works, why change it? And so it's amazing how all these things keep changing, and tools go from in fashion to out of fashion, and it seems like a lot of people are really negative on WebEx right now. I have nothing against WebEx, but it's like, I was listening to a podcast the other day, and they were saying something like, we use Zoom and we use Teams, and if we have to, we use WebEx. It's like is there really that much difference? But tools go in and out of favor and popularity and whatnot, and can't explain that part of it. But I love to talk about them.
I think they might be thinking of WebEx a few years ago because they've really put a lot of development to it. I mean, you got to give them credit. It's not the same WebEx that we love to hate so much. It was fun to hate WebEx, but it's kind of like a very similar experience to Zoom and Microsoft Teams. They need more credit.
I like WebEx.
There's nothing else to like now. There used to be stuff.
They really have. It has come a long way. A lot of these tools have come a long way, and the pandemic. It's kind of careful what you wish for type of thing, because for the last 10 years, every one of these companies have been saying if only video was more mainstream, if only more people would use video and work from home and stuff like that. And then, they had, like I said, careful what you wish for. Now that it kind of happened, there's a lot more pressure. All of a sudden, Microsoft and Google doubled down, and actually they changed the rules. For the past 10 years, Microsoft and Google always kind of had this like informal rule they followed. We will offer real-time communications, but it will be crappy. And that way, the idiots will use it, and then and people who really want to communicate, there'll be an ecosystem of other players. But during the pandemic, that kind of changed. They said we better fix this stuff, and they actually made pretty decent products. Yeah. So now, if you're like Zoom or Cisco or Ring Central or any of these guys, not only do you have to sell an enterprise to buy your product, which is selling anything is tough, right? And not only do you have to sell them to buy your product, but you have to sell them to not use the product they already bought, and it's a double whammy. But some companies are successful at it. So,
yeah. Well, the good news is for companies like that. I think Tim Banting was telling me recently he did a survey or a study that said only like 11%, and I've heard lower numbers of companies are saying we're only going to use one. We're sick of this. We're sick of Zoom and Teams and WebEx. We're only going to use one. That's significant. 11% is significant, but the other 89% that are like, yeah, we'll use Zoom for what we like and we'll use Teams for what we like about that. That's I think that's more significant. So I was going into Zoom Perspectives. I've been hearing all these anecdotal stories of companies saying, hey, the boss said choose one and we're choosing Teams because that's obviously what we do. And when we went to Zoom Perspectives, we heard that it's not really a problem for Zoom. It's not, well, it's anecdotal.
Well, so I said one of the rules that changed was that Microsoft and Google used to always make really crappy products for video. And so that rule changed. The second rule that changed, but much more subtly, was the zero-sum game. And so pre-pandemic, it was, choose one, not the other, and that's it. And, I win, you lose. But somewhere along the line of the pandemic, and these companies were having outages because they had more, they weren't built for this kind of capacity. Became kind of fashionable to say you need to choose two, and it's a little complicated. It's easy for meetings, it's easy for calling. It's a little complicated with chat because you kind of want to have all your chat in one place. But you could disable chat on the second app. But a lot of companies now are choosing two. And the other narrative, just a real quick one here, I've written quite a bit about this, is that pre-pandemic, everybody was fighting to be number one. We want a zero-sum game, choose us. And during the pandemic, Microsoft Teams kind of broke out and became number one. And so the conversation kind of switched to who's going to be number two. And it was really kind of depressing. I mean, I don't know how you felt, Dave, but it was like you go to these events and it's like we're going to be number two. It's like well, that's great. I'm so happy for you. And everybody was fighting, and everybody had good arguments, right? Ring Central, Google, Cisco, Zoom, they all had really good arguments about why they were going to be number two. And it was going to be, this will be an interesting battle. But it appears that Microsoft wanted to have an opinion on this, and Microsoft decided they wanted Cisco to be number two. So Microsoft and Cisco have been working very closely together. They appeared in each other's keynotes, Enterprise Connect. They've given Cisco some exclusive benefits where you could be in a Teams room and a Cisco WebEx room without having to reboot, where you can't do that with any other platform. So Microsoft and Cisco are kind of working really hard for that to be number two. And it makes sense if you think about it, because Cisco brings to Microsoft all these great high-end room systems that are already installed in enterprises. Yeah. And from a Microsoft perspective, they can't even fathom a world where Zoom or Google should exist. So Cisco has to exist because that's how you connect to Microsoft. So they're already sharing a lot of accounts together and all that stuff. So you've got those two, and if you listen to the way those two companies talk, Cisco and Microsoft, they talk about cohabitation. They talk about how you should have two. Where that's not so common with the other ones, but still, it's become like I said, one of the rules that changed.
Yeah.
So, what are you seeing, Fang? I'm just curious because you're working in these systems all the time. So, like, what what are you seeing in the scopes you're putting together and kind of out on the street, at least on the West Coast where most of our presence is?
That's a good question. I mean, as soon as I think I see a trend, whether it be, it's definitely Zoom heavy for a little while. But then in terms of what we do, I mean, we do a lot of obviously AV programming, specifically in QSys. And if I had to choose which one I think is best integrated with that type of AV platform, it's definitely Teams, right? The idea that you can have not just your Teams control on one thing and then have a complete custom touch panel on that same piece of glass. That's kind of been what everyone's been wanting. Zoom did it for a little while and then did their kind of Zoom thing where they updated and didn't let everyone else catch up. And so that had to go the way of the dodo. And hopefully it's going to come back. Google Meet is kind of doing something similar. It's kind of close to Teams, but the process to do it is a bit more convoluted than I think is necessary. Well, that's not true. I don't know if I'm sure it's necessary, but it's a lot more convoluted than Teams. Let's just put it that way. So in what we do, I would say we see a lot more dedicated systems that are Teams specific. Beyond that, if it's not Teams, then it's people that want to have everything in one spot. But the problem there, and kind of that's what I find interesting about this discussion, is that there's no there's no perfect solution to have every codec in one control interface, right? Which makes sense because who wants to play nicely with others? That's just how the free market system works. It is what it is. But that's what all the end users want, right? Because as soon as they have a CEO that is, Teams heavy or, Teams leaning, they're going to have another, chief executive, whatever, that is Zoom heavy. And then, so they can't reconcile those two things without having two different points of control. People go into the conference room wanting to have start a meeting, get going, turn the lights on, turn the audio system on, but they have to touch two panes of glass and they just lose their minds.
Yeah.
So, in terms of what I see the most, I would say Teams, but I'll be the first to say that it's definitely a skewed vantage point, right? Because we're in QSys. QSys has worked very well with Teams so far with all their AV certification stuff, and they've worked really hard to get all of their ecosystem involved in that, and they've done a great job. But they also have plenty of efforts working with Zoom, plenty of efforts working with Google Meet, and I'm sure there's some behind the scenes where they're trying to work with other codecs as well, but those being the big three, they're definitely up there. So it's an interesting question because it's not an easy one, right? Because as soon as I say one preference, I'm going to go back to where I started in contracts today where people are asking for Zoom rooms, right? So as soon as I think it's one thing, it's going to change to something else. So.
And the whole thing is just not easy enough on the users, I think. Something that came up, one of the early episodes of the show was what Dave was just talking about with Cisco and Microsoft working together. In our news segment, I said the news that Cisco had a device that doesn't just connect to WebEx, it connects to Teams, and you don't have to reboot it. It just, you do one Teams meeting, one Cisco meeting. And Kelly was like, so that's the way the world should work. Can't I just,
really,
my phone? Can I just,
Yeah.
And Fang jumped in and Fang says, Fang is on the ground with the customers. Fang says, I did 3 this week. I had rooms where I had to put in a Cisco system for WebEx and I had to put in a separate Zoom or Teams system. And Kelly was her mind blown.
Yeah.
And,
I'm not out in the field doing that. So it's, I just assumed it. And I'm sure that's what everyone else thinks too, right? Who's not in UC, AV, enterprise, whatever,
I mentioned that Microsoft Teams became kind of, mainstream during the pandemic, but I mean, really mainstream. This is we haven't had a monopoly or, a vendor this big in enterprise comms since the Bell system. And so they really have changed the whole big conversation, for, pun intended, of enterprise comms. One of the most refreshing things, actually, Dave, I felt at the last Zoom event, the Zoom Perspectives event, was one of the first events I've been to probably in 2 years that they weren't bending over backwards, or let's just say bending over for Microsoft the whole time. A lot of these vendors are just like, we're trying to ride the coattails of Microsoft, and so we make Microsoft Teams better. And Cisco, which used to always fight Microsoft for the last 10 years, is now, well, we make Microsoft Ed. We work so well with Microsoft. So it's so great to be at the Zoom event where they were like, Teams, like you don't need Teams. Let's show you what you can do in the Zoom app. And that was fantastic. It was actually really refreshing to hear that conversation to you.
Yeah, I was shocked by that, because all my questions are about how are you competing with Teams when I'm using Windows. I'm not going to stop using Windows and start using Linux or something. And I got Teams. We all got Teams. So I thought it was going to be 2 days of here's how we're competing against Teams in the enterprise, and here's where we're competing against Teams in education. And the first day goes by and they don't mention Microsoft. They don't. It's not like they didn't give them they didn't mention them. I cornered the new CTO, who is a 30-year Microsoft vet. Right, that guy's a rock star and a half. And I had him over by the coffee machine, and I'm like, he's like, what do you think of the event so far? I'm like, it's great, but aren't you guys worried about what Microsoft is doing? He goes, we know what Microsoft's doing. We're a lot more worried about what our customers want. Like, that's a smart answer. It's the right answer. And I don't think it's a BS answer. I think that's really their strategy. So yeah, it was super refreshing.
Pretty cool.
Yeah. So we got WebEx 1 coming up next month. It'll be interesting how they position things, and they're all doing things a little differently. Some, like I said, are playing up the Teams angle. I think a new thing that's going to be coming very interesting, kind of in your space, is they're all moving into events, right? So both Cisco and Zoom are really moving into events, and that became another pandemic change. I think that's a really interesting change, and I'm excited about. I'm actually really excited about where we're going in events. And then we just saw Ring Central buy a lot of the assets from Hopin. And so you got those 3 companies all going strong into events now. And we're also seeing, these other plays around mobility. So it's interesting how the different vendors are trying to distinguish themselves and stand out differently. And of course, contact center is getting having its moment.
Wow. That's exploding fast. I don't like talking about contact center because it brings back all my experience with the contact centers, which have all been terrible in my life. I always think about the worst time I ever had to call Comcast, but contact center is a big part of our contact center is a big part of our industry, and it is doing good things. The software, the AI they're putting in the software, it is going to make it a better experience for people.
Is it though?
Well,
hopefully.
You got I love you, Kelly, because you're just like, I'm not in the industry. I'm not putting up with any of your Kool-Aid. Let me tell you, as a user, so I love that reaction. But here's the thing: the contact center industry, in my opinion, has been broken for a long time. And the reason it's broken is because you've got all these contact center vendors that are out there selling customer experience, how great it is, and improve your CSAT, blah 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 blah. And we all know, like Kelly, calling up on these contact centers and just getting frustrated as can be. It's like, this is not a great experience, whatever. And there's just this big disconnect. And so what's happening is the buyers, sure, we're glad to hear about your CX stuff. We just want to cut costs. And how do we cut costs? Oh, we could put up more IV. Oh, deflection. Tell us more about deflection. Tell us more about hold times. Tell us more about all this stuff. And so there's this big disconnect. They're selling one thing. They're selling CX, or customer experience, and they're buying cost. Now, what's so exciting right now, and the reason the sector is on fire, is because the new generative AI, there's a belief, a perception, unproven, a belief that for the first time, generative AI is not only going to allow you to reduce costs, but it will actually improve CSAT. And so it will align the industry. Hey, this is going to be great. Now, when you call, we don't have to frickin' answer the phone, and we don't have to piss you off. We can just let the bot solve all your problems, and everybody's going to be happy. And so that's why everybody's just going crazy and excited. Now, there's a hope. There's a desire that this will actually prove to be true. I think a lot of us are in the chatbots are fun to ask, what's the capital of Ohio, but I have a real problem to solve here, and I'm not sure your bot's going to get it. So we'll see where this goes, but it's going to be a very interesting ride, because there's like more money and more attention and more focus right now in making these bots actually work.
It is fascinating though, because my mom got sick about 2 years ago, and I've taken over all of her bills, all of her accounts, all of the things I manage that because I don't live near her. So that's like the thing I can help with. So the transition of passwords and trying to take over these accounts and meeting with everybody from like hospitals to prescriptions to Comcast to Sirius XM radio to, I mean, it's all over the board, the energy company, the electricity, utilities, all of that stuff to try and gain access to all of these accounts so I can pay them and figure out what I need to pay them. And it's been, I mean, it's been incredibly horrible just in general.
And that's to pay them. I mean, if you call it a problem, I need to fix something. It's, oh, well, you can't talk to you. But if you're calling to pay, it's like, well, we'll talk to you after an hour. But it's very frustrating.
I will say that once it's gotten set up, the automation of it has been unbelievable.
Yeah.
They are getting.
I don't have to really worry about it all that much. I mean, she's taking like, I don't know, some ridiculous amount of prescriptions, like 12 prescriptions. And I contacted like all of the doctors and got them all routed through Amazon Pharmacy.
Wow.
So it's like, now I can go into Amazon, figure out exactly what she's taking, when I can reorder, it just gets shipped to her house. So there's a lot of good things. And actually like the customer service, when I called Amazon, they walked me through it all. So,
and that goes back to the thing I was saying earlier about the pandemic. Is one of the big eye-opening things that happened during the pandemic was how much more we can do online than anyone ever thought possible. And so now there's this new, we've been talking digital transformation for 10 years, but it's been pretty lightweight. And so pre-pandemic, digital transformation was my bank wanted me to wire money instead of sending checks. And so they said, hey, why don't you become modern and wire money and whatever and get that set up. During the pandemic, I had to wire money. And they said, oh, to wire money, you have to come to the bank and sign a form, the branch, but our branches are closed because of the pandemic, so you can't do that. Post-pandemic, it is totally digital. It's like now we're all figuring out, like what you're talking about, Kelly. Now we're figuring out, why don't we build a web portal that actually lets people do what they want to do? And so I look at the types of things that I call for. When I call an 800 number for some reason, I always ask myself, should this have been something I could have done on self-service? And there's lots of reasons why. The answer is legitimately no. This isn't a vendor I normally work with. I don't have an account. I don't have whatever. There's lots of reasons why you don't. But it's surprising how often the answer is yes. There's a ton of, and that's what's happening right now. We're seeing a ton of. Let's build an actual portal. Let's build this capability. Let's do these things, and so we should be calling less now. And then we get into this next discussion, which maybe you don't want to get into, which is what happens to the agents. And I believe the agents are going to do just fine, because I think they're actually going to do great, because the more people that are calling, because right now we don't want to call, but not even calling. I shouldn't even say calling, but asking for service, whatever. The more people, the more we can do on our own. There's always going to be certain issues that we can't do on our own, and so a percentage is always going to go over to a human agent, whether it be voice or chat or something. And that's going to be more interesting. So I don't think the agents are going to lose their jobs. And I think they're going to get better jobs because they're going to have more interesting types of work. And so, but there's different arguments about what's going to happen here. Predicting the future has two people, you get 6 opinions. So, and 3 of them will be right. So.
Well, think about the agents. One thing that excited me about the new generation of customer service. I can't be said. I said excited and customer service in the same sentence. But at Zoom Perspective, they showed us the agent's point of view, and it looked like Zoom chat. And someone goes to your website and says, "Hey, does your hat come in this color?" And a chat pops up. And if you're an agent, you're like, everything was there in Zoom. My Zoom meetings are there. My Zoom chat is there. The agent stuff is there. I could resolve a ticket. And I'm like, oh, this doesn't look hard to learn. I could take a call right now. I wouldn't be, I don't think it's the most fun job in the world, but this looks okay. So I think the software we always think of how it's going to improve the lives of the customers. I think it'll improve the lives of the agents as well.
Yeah, hopefully the cost savings of using some generative AI will boost efficiency and maybe give them a raise. Probably not. But
no, they never give the workers raises, but more profits for, for the owners.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So we have a few more segments too. I know Dave we're already over time. Should we bust onto our? I think we might be able to skip the news, but I love our little news intro. Today's news is brought to you by Farm AV. But,
we just talk about the news?
I think we just kind of did the news. But if we're talking about news in the UC industry, we just have to say AI 10 times. AI,
Yeah.
AI. Everyone's doing AI. I looked at UC Today, one of the news sites in our industry, and there were like 10 articles on the front page, and 8 of them were about AI.
Yeah.
Not exaggerating.
So. No, definitely AI is the new gold. And we're still in a slow month, right? So July and August are kind of slow. The fall is going to get crazy. I tell people that October is always the busiest month for analysts. I know I'm traveling almost every day of October.
Wow.
And yeah, it's I'm actually going to go around the world twice in October. But the
so are you platinum on one of the airlines?
Platinum's way. I'm 1K. Yeah. So the way it works, I can't get to what's it called, GSA, whatever, global services they call it, United. They don't advertise that one. They don't tell you what you have to do to get to that one. Yeah, that one you just get invited. So I've never been to that one, but I've been 1K for years, and people like get kind of jealous. Like, you get all these benefits on the airlines. It's like, look, if you don't fly that much, you're way ahead of me. I would rather trade lose all my benefits to not have to travel so much, because travel is just a pain. But really is. The nature of our work, I tell people I'm a professional attendee. So October is going to be a very, very busy month. Always is.
What's going on?
The busiest week of the year is Enterprise Connect. Busiest month of the year is October. I'm sorry. What did you say, Kelly?
What do you got going on
in October?
So the first week is UCX London. And so that's their version of Enterprise Connect. It's much smaller. I'll already be over in Europe, so that'll be nice. I'll go right to London and then fly back to the US. And then the second week is the NICE event in Peru. They're doing it in
Wow.
Machu Picchu. And I get what they want to do. They want to have a prestigious event. They want to impress everybody, all that stuff. I didn't realize how hard it is to get there. No wonder that civilization was abandoned. It's like you cannot get there. And so to get there, we have to fly to Lima, and then you get into Lima. We have to stay in a hotel in Lima just to catch the next plane to Cusco to get to Machu Picchu. And so it's a 2-day thing just to get there. Then we got the Peru event with NICE, and NICE is just amazing. They're just doing some amazing stuff with customer service and AI. And they just came out on the top left of that leader quadrant. So it'll be a great event. Then that event is ending, and then there's a big conference in Dubai called GITEX. And
well, I remember that one from my VOD.
Yeah, it's kind of a combination between CES and maybe Supercom, or it's a pretty big show in the Middle East and Asia. It's in the Middle East, but it covers the Asia market as well. And so we're going to go from Peru right over back to so that'll be transatlantic twice, and then after GITEX is WebEx1, the Cisco event in Anaheim, California, beautiful Anaheim, California. So that's just October, and that's the ones I'm going to. You've also got Google Next coming up. That might be next? That might be September this year.
Not sure.
You got Google Next coming up. You've got there's a couple. Once I decided I'm not going, they fall off my radar. But
David, number 2, which ones are you going to?
Zoomtopia is happening soon, isn't it?
Yeah, you're going to Zoomtopia. That's the same week as the London show. Yeah, I'm not going to go to Zoomtopia.
And I'm going to do the WebEx thing.
Cool.
And doing Cedia in a week from now.
Heck yeah.
Cedia is interesting because, like you were saying, we're kind of, my life has been, what is Zoom and Microsoft and Cisco and Poly and Logitech doing? And there's this whole, other AV world. And I kind of explore that at InfoComm. I stepped outside our little boundaries. I went outside the purple carpet area and to the rest. And they're related to what we're doing. I'm interested in what they're doing. And Cedia is going to be a lot of that. So I'm looking forward to that show.
Connected.
Oh, that'd be good. I went to the one in Barcelona. What was it called?
ISE?
ISE in January.
Yeah.
I went to that, which is their version of Cedia. By the way, just because a lot of AV people listen to your podcast, I live in this is a community in New Jersey that is brand new construction, right? So the builder built it and then turned it over, and they have by a pool, they have all these speakers, and I've never heard the speakers on, and they said we don't know how to work them. It's all we think they're wireless speakers. They're built in. They're like endless cement. We have no idea how to work them. And so do you know anybody that knows how to do audio? And I said I might be able to find some people that know how to do audio in the area. So I was going to reach out to Danto or somebody, but maybe somebody knows how to do that stuff. But funny. It seems a shame.
Yes, we can help with that.
Kelly specializes in pool speakers, so I think she can take care of that one for you.
Does it say it on your business card?
Yeah.
Yes. Pool speaker expert.
Yeah.
All right, so we move on. We have a couple more segments. First, I wanted to make a comment that when we do this effect, right now we're pretty good. We're sized about the same, and the lighting's not good. But sometimes, if someone is way too close, they have a big head, it doesn't give the right effect or lighting. And Dave called me out, and we had a talk at Infocom, and you said sometimes when it's not right on your show, it gives it like a South Park effect. It looks like cardboard cutouts. So I thought I'd lean into that.
Yes.
Oh my God.
I thought I'd lean into it. I made myself the fat one.
I like it.
I love it.
That's perfect.
Isn't this cute? We have to come up with excuses to use this because this is fun.
Oh, yeah.
I love it. And the sign as well.
All right. Oh, wait.
Perfect.
And with that, are we ready for our, what segment is this? Our mildly satisfying segment.
Yes.
Let's do it.
Now,
I always look forward to this.
this is a new segment. Because when I was searching for my mildly satisfying clip, I came across this clip in my usual, there's websites that have mildly satisfying video clips that we all love, that we've all been enjoying. And I came across this one and I watched it and I said, I don't know, you tell me. So this is a new segment, and the segment is officially the You Tell Me. All right, here we go. Why is that on my internet? You tell me. What is that? What did we just watch?
Well, it's clearly, obviously, a Irish horse doing river dance.
It does look Irish.
I love the different surface noises.
Right? It is satisfying.
It really is.
It was in the satisfying website, but I'm not satisfied.
I am.
You are.
Can you just imagine being that horse and being like, I can run so fast, and you're having me do this
Right?
for so long.
The horse
Marvin
looked
the
mad.
Robot.
Oh my God.
The horse looked mad. So we have another new segment. I spend way too much time on Reddit, so I decided to leverage my Reddit addiction or whatever. And the thing about Reddit is you can make your own subreddit for anything. There's millions of subreddits for all kinds of topics, sports, football, baseball, music, the Beatles. I follow Beatles subreddit. But if you go to the main page, it's just the most popular stuff. But if you look around, you find some weird subreddits. So our new bit, what have we had this? Our new segment is the weird subreddit segment.
Oh boy.
This subreddit I found, it was Super Bowl time, and I don't follow the football as well as some people. I wanted to get caught up on what's going on with the football, so I went to
The football.
this one.
I was gonna say I could tell because you called it the football.
I went to Reddit/Super Bowl, and I'm seeing all these pictures of owls because Super Bowl is spelled the same as superb owl.
Yeah.
So, and the thing is, it's not just like, oh, they put up a couple as a joke. This is a thriving subreddit. It is really well maintained and run. It has constant new content. There's a lot of subreddits. There's a commercial AV subreddit Not a lot of action there. Not a lot going on there. It's not a bad subreddit, but it's not. This is a very active, very well moderated. And some of these pictures, these are like art photos. This is a great subreddit. But the entire thing is a joke because the entire time they never mention football. They're always, in on the joke. They're always like, yeah, it's eating a mouse.
Is that a dead animal in its mouth?
It's like a little mouse or something.
It's a little mouse. They never let on. They're just, wow, that's a superb owl. Great picture. That owl looks superb.
It.
Good. I love that.
I love it. So we have time for one more bit. We have a lot of bits in this show, and I'm sorry I'm going through fast, but I know David's got to go, so I want to go.
Well,
through
you
fast.
don't. I'm all right, but I'm just surprised you didn't do a tie-in to the meeting owl.
Oh, that's right. There's a product in our space called the meeting owl.
Remember that.
But it's superb.
It's still a thing. It was invented by some guys from the iRobot team. So it's a smart development team. And in some ways, they were ahead of everyone because they have a thing in the center of the table that looks around and does things to make it a good view.
Does it move its head like this?
No, it looks straight up out of a fisheye lens. There's a fisheye lens that looks straight up at the ceiling, and then they unwarp it. It's really weird how
and they don't mention football either.
And they don't mention it.
As they should, though.
And they think that they're superb.
There you go.
I think they're superb.
So the last thing on our agenda, or second to last thing on our agenda, is our dad jokes.
Here we go.
Anyone else have one?
I didn't know to prepare. I'm accused of always having one.
Ooh, I have a good one.
Okay, you go first.
What do you get when you mix alcohol and literature? Tequila Mockingbird.
All right, do I have a wah sound? Oh, I have.
Come on, it's good. I heard that one this week.
That honestly sounds like a good drink. Like it would be pretty good.
Right?
Yeah.
That
was pretty good.
Okay, so mine came from my friend Scott, who was an actual dad. He's
actual dad.
He's an
Not
actual
me.
dad. So it's legit. He's a friend from high school. We're hanging out, we're chatting on Zoom or something like that. And he mentions that he reached out to our old friend from high school, Trisha. And you know how it is. Some of our friends were still talk to each other all the time, but we sort of lost touch with Trisha. She just kind of fell out of the group. And she's amazing and we love her. I'm like, oh my God, you reached out to Trisha? Trisha, that's so great. She's so awesome. And he said, yeah, I connected with her. And he said, guess where she's living now? And I thought to myself, well, he wouldn't ask if it was somewhere boring. It's got to be somewhere cool, somewhere different. So I said, I don't know, Alaska? And he goes, you don't have to ask her. I already know.
All right.
Oh, that like hurt my heart.
I only know 25 letters of the alphabet. I don't know why.
It's not my joke, Scott.
No.
Do I have to get Scott on the show?
That's so good.
Oh, that was pretty good, actually. Nice job.
I just sit with that one. Oh man.
I did have to sit
the
with
rest
it.
of my day.
I kept coming back to it later throughout the day.
Oh man, that's awesome. That's awesome.
All right. And with that, are we ready for our final thoughts with Kelly Perkins?
I think we are.
Yes.
Please.
All right. Today, I'm going to leave you with this wonderful, interesting fact. Did you know that it is physically impossible for a pig to look at the sky?
Can't be right.
Tell that to Babe.
No, the anatomy of their neck muscles and spine limit the movement of their head and restricts them from looking up.
Oh, okay. So it's not like, okay, so if you picked up a pig and like just tilted it upward, they could look at the sky. Okay, got it. I was wondering if they just like
or bring this guy down.
Yeah, right. I was just thinking they might just close their eyes if you try to tilt them up or something. They just refuse to look at the sky. But I see what you're saying.
So they have no defense against drone attacks.
Yeah, they have a really hard time looking at trees too.
Well, now I'm sad
That's
for the
sad.
kids.
But they can see little plants.
Okay.
I mean, how did Babe meet that spider that was way up there in the rafters?
Oh man, you got that. That's a good one. You've just destroyed the whole thing. Is fiction. you just exposed it. That never happened.
Did you also combine Babe with Charlotte's Web?
Babe could also. I was thinking. I was like, I was wondering.
Those
if
are
I
different
did.
pigs.
And you know what? I contend that Babe could also have met a spider.
No, that's not Babe. That's Wilbur.
Wilbur.
Yes.
Oh,
that's
what it was.
name.
You're right.
That was one
That's
terrific
its
pig.
name. Will Babe is what I'm going to call it from now on.
Will babe.
Yeah.
All right. And with
Well,
that, thank you
on that
everyone for
note-
watching.
Thanks, David, for coming. Thanks, Fang and David Maldow.
Thanks, everyone. We'll see you next time.